Hello, and welcome to the weekly service for Between the Worlds Church. Between the Worlds Waking Christian Church is intentionally radically inclusive, and we welcome all persons of any race, color, age, ancestry, sexual or relationship orientation, body size, gender, religion, or any other difference. We respect each other and remember that all of our beliefs are equally valid in the eyes of Spirit. We love all the deities that are represented in our virtual congregation, and we include Jesus in our spiritual practice, however he may come to us. Excuse me, I'm Reverend Gina Pond, and I welcome you to our midweek service. No real announcements, but just a reminder that you can watch this service every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central European Time, which is 10 a.m. Eastern US and 7 a.m. Pacific Time US. So I'd like to encourage you to come and join us. And I also will post the weekly service on our website at betweentheworlds.church within a few hours of the end of the live service. So you can watch it at your leisure. So today, let us call in the elements. Spirits of the east, of air, may we always gain new knowledge and the resources to recognize our truth. Spirits of the south, of fire, may we always call on our passion to drive us and to do the work that Spirit has called us to do. Spirits of the west, of water, may we always remember to acknowledge the feelings of others and find our compassion. Spirits of the north, of earth, may we always remember that no matter who we are part of the earth, and that we are made from the earth and will go back to the earth. And spirits of the center, the community that which we are, may we always hold each other up through the bad and the good in any way we are called and able to serve. So today I'm calling in Jesus as the human person that he was. So welcome, Jesus. So if you'd like prayer said for you, or if you have permission from another to have prayer said for them, you can post them in the chat, either on Facebook or on YouTube. Today I'm praying, there's so much to pray for. It really is. I mean, there's been shootings again in the US, and, there's all sorts of the stuff with Brexit. And you know what? I'm just praying for everybody today. There's just way too much going on to just single out certain single things. So if you are in a hard place, if you are in a place where life is just not what it should be, just know that I'm sending prayers to you. So so now a moment of silence to say any prayers on your own that you'd like to say privately. Spirits of the universe, please hear our prayers. So today's reading for the sermon is from Mark 14, verse 32 to 34. And this is from the Inclusive Bible, if anybody wonders what Bible I use. And it says, "Then they came down to a place called Gethsemane. Jesus said to them, 'Sit down here while I pray.' Jesus took along with him Peter, James, and John. Then he began to be very distressed and troubled and said to them, 'My heart is filled with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch.'" So when I read this particular passage, but actually the whole story of Gethsemane, besides the fact that it's my favorite part of the gospel, I really get this moment that Jesus is like, I just can't, right? And he's basically like, F you, God, and your whole effing plan. I don't want to do this anymore, right? But then later in the passage, he says to God, "Not my will, but your will be done." And some people may see that as him giving up, but to me, what that means is that while his heart is heavy and he's sad about what's going to happen next, he knows that it needs doing, and he's going to go do it anyway. And like I said earlier, it's a pretty human moment, right? Or I've said it in other places. But anyway, we've all had those times where we're just so tired, so sad, or we're sick, or whatever, and we just kind of do what needs doing anyway. But then even Jesus took some time out before everything went down, and he went up to Gethsemane to pray and to think, away from his disciples, away from the crowds. And for him, he felt it was a necessary time for him to clear his head and remember what he was put on earth to do. And I like to think of the story of Gethsemane when I'm feeling especially world weary. Like I was reading on Facebook the other day, and suddenly I was just done with it all. Right? I stopped reading. I turned it off. I walked away from it, and it's just because my heart was just so weary after reading post after post of hate, like either hatred at groups of people, people being killed because somebody hated them, or the fallout of hate-filled thoughts and thought and policies. Excuse me. And and I see people like all over the world just barely making ends meet, not even getting basic health care, or worse, being denied health care altogether just because of who they are. And it takes a toll on us all. When I was in seminary, I learned about how people can have a collective trauma that affects everyone in a group or a nation. And basically, that is a whole group of people or a country can have something so bad happen to them that all of the people get a form of PTSD from it, even in the generations after this thing happens to them. The most explicit example that people would probably think of right away is the trauma of the Jewish people from the Holocaust. But slavery is in the U.S. is another one. The troubles in Ireland, or Bosnia, the war in Bosnia, or what's happening in Syria. Anywhere in the world where there has been a mass death or oppression, it's been seen that even coming out of something like that, there's this collective PTSD that the whole country has, or the whole group of people have. But there's also kind of like, it may not just be one big thing either. It can be smaller compounded trauma of living in a state of perpetual fear and oppression and death, like African Americans, Muslims, transgender people, queer people. We all have this kind of collective trauma, and sometimes it just catches up with you, right? And like Jesus in the garden, it's okay to step away from all the news for a bit. Stepping away for a bit of time doesn't make you a bad activist, or a bad Black person, or a bad queer person, or a bad pagan, or any of that. It's a necessary thing to do in order to continue the fight, to be able to have the strength to fight later and say, to quote Game of Thrones, "Not today." And then you get into the fight again, right? Like, you're able to say that when you go back to the fight, right? The anger and frustration feel can only really sustain you for a short period of time before it does some real damage to you, and you're forced to step back. Because humans just need that time to step away in order to rest, recuperate, to think. And sometimes that's also a time you need to realize what's the real fight you need to fight. you know are you fighting the right fight? Are you fighting in the way that's best for you? And while I truly believe that one person can have the ability to change the world, they never do it alone. And they can't do it at all if they don't take time away from their fight in order to gain some perspective. So if you have to get off Facebook or take time off, do it. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It means you know when you are at a point where you are exhausted and you need the rest. That, I think, is the wisdom that Jesus shows in Gethsemane. And even he knew that the rest was necessary. So, spirits of the universe, let us remember that we are just human, that we need to rest as much as we need to fight. Let us have faith that there will be other of our fellow humans to allow us the time to regroup and gain perspective so that when we come back to our work, we can continue and endure. In your many names, amen. So I'd like to thank Jesus as his human self for being here with us today. Thank you to the spirits of earth, water, fire, and air. And thank you to all of you who have joined me today for this small moment of service and of peace, I hope, in your day. May you go in peace and blessed be, and have a great week.